Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth, alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hi, Andy. Hi.
It's Wednesday,
Hi.
which means it's time for another installment of your favorite and mine, Project Melway, brought to
Well,
you by
the Gibsonian Institute.
the Gibsonian Institute, a shadowy cabal of an international organization, has tasked us.
You've said too much already.
Fair point. I mean, they're not.
No one knows who the Gibsonian Institute is.
Yes,
All
they
we
just
know is that they have threatened us if we don't
yes
do what we're doing.
threatened us and our families if we do not complete the following task for them: all of Mel Gibson's movies in chronological order. And so,
So we shall.
and so we shall, and so we have, and so we shall continue.
I mean, look, it's what we do for the love of the art.
That's right. That's right. And you know what, Phil? You know what? The Gibsonian Institute may take our lives,
Yes.
but they will never take our freedom.
Oh my gosh. I've heard that recently. Where have I heard that? Oh, I know. This week we're watching a little movie called Braveheart.
I think I've heard of that before I watched it for Project Melway. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is one of
Yep.
those ones that it's a rewatch.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Picture this. The year is 1995. Mel Gibson, fresh off of the success of the film Maverick, has been given the opportunity to direct again. Now, again, Mel Gibson has chosen to direct himself in a film as he did in The Man Without a Face. And in both situations, he did so that he could get the movie made.
Yep.
And in both situations, his production company produced it, which would end up becoming very profitable for him. And in this situation, even with him in it, they had a hard time getting it picked up by a studio.
Fascinating.
Warner Brothers wouldn't distribute it, and so he got a different distributor.
Hmm.
So, anyways, Braveheart had a very weird run. It was in the theaters. It was not run as a blockbuster, and then it did really well, and they did a second running of it when it got nominated.
Fascinating.
Sorry,
Seriously.
Braveheart.
So, I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that we've all seen Braveheart.
Yeah, let's not get into the
Yeah.
plot, especially since it's 3 hours long. It's just
Indeed. Let's wrap it up. So,
wrap it up.
Phil and I have disparaged Braveheart on this podcast before, and it before rewatching it, the reason that I think I can speak for both of us. The reason that both of us were disparaging it wasn't necessarily to do with Braveheart specifically, but the same year another Scottish epic was released that
Yep.
we just feel was a significantly better movie.
Yes.
And that is Rob Roy, starring
Yes.
Liam Neeson. If nothing else,
And Jessica Lange,
yes,
Tim Roth, and John
Tim
Hurt,
Roth,
and Brian
yes.
Cox, Eric Stoltz. Yep. Just murderer's row of actors. Anyway, go ahead.
it's true. It's true. Even if Rob Roy were a terrible movie, and it is not,
No.
the climactic sword fight, whatever your criteria, top 10 sword fights of all time.
Yes,
On
that is
screen.
accurate.
Unbelievable.
What you just
So
said.
good. So
Yep.
good. So I was sort of excited to watch this movie again because I wanted to. I had seen Rob Roy more recently, and although it's actually been a couple years for me with that as well, and it had been several years since I've seen Braveheart, and I wanted to come at it as objectively as I was able to.
Yep.
And I think you and I had, I won't say diametrically opposed opinions, but we had different opinions coming out of it.
Yeah. That's right.
What did you think this last time that you watched it?
I could never see Braveheart again, and that would be fine. I just didn't care. And it's not that it was bad. I just don't care. I don't care.
And interestingly, the thing that I came while I don't necessarily, this is not really a disagreement with you, but I came across, I came, the phrase that I came up with after finishing it was, wow, that was really totally watchable.
Mm. No, and it is. I think it's if other people were like, "Oh man, I'm gonna watch Braveheart," okay, like
Sure.
it's not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie.
Right.
We talked. This is only the second movie that Mel Gibson has directed.
Mm-hmm.
He does. I don't think he deserved the Best Director Oscar,
No.
especially, but he does. But it is very well made. It
Yes.
is. It is a he directs this movie very competently, and I know people use the word competent as sort of like a backhanded compliment, or I'm sorry, yeah, backhanded compliment, like a couched insult. I don't mean that at all. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the action sequences are. I mean, this movie is epic. It is a 3 hour movie. It is a 3 hour movie that, as far as I can tell, never drags. It is a
Right.
3 hour movie with multiple battle sequences that are all shot really well. Um, the characters are interesting. There's a lot going on, but it never gets confusing.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't. It's a very simple plot.
Yeah.
It's in that sense, in many ways, a very old-fashioned swashbuckling epic, because a lot of times these days they just try to cram as much stuff in, like, convolution is confused for plot. And
Indeed.
in the old-fashioned movies, it's just, no, we're just going to tell a really long story. There's just a lot of story to tell, and we're going to
Yeah.
tell it. And
Yes.
that was the case with Braveheart. It was, this has a lot of different aspects to the film, and we are going to show it all.
Yep.
And it does. And it does a
Yeah.
very fine job of that. So when I say stuff like, I don't care if I never see it again, I get that that sounds like insulting.
Right.
But really, for a 3 hour movie, for me to want to watch a 3 hour movie again,
It needs to be really amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally. Here are the other Best Director nominees from that year. Michael Radford for Il Postino, a movie sadly I have not seen. I need to. Tim Robbins for Dead Man Walking.
Oh, yeah. That already one movie that it should have won before it.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Chris Noonan for Babe.
That should have won before. Go
Yes.
ahead.
And Mike Figgis for Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah, any of those would have been better choices, I think.
Agreed.
But
Agreed. No, totally. Totally agreed. Totally agreed. I mean, it was fun, but you know, when we were talking about Man Without a Face, however long ago we talked about it,
2 weeks ago.
one of the things you said that not only did I like at the time, but it came back to me as I was watching Braveheart, was it's like Mel Gibson is the best, like, this is not what you said, but like so what you said was like it's very, very like the broad strokes, right?
Yes.
So I feel like Mel Gibson would be one of the best directors in the history of Hollywood at like the first pass of a movie, right? And then once you've got all the building blocks, then you bring in like a David Lean if it's an epic, or Michael Curtis, or Billy Wilder, you know,
Yeah.
or Hitchcock or whatever. But
Yeah.
but that kind of that.
Let him set the table for the genre, and then let better people come in and make really fantastically complex. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. He
Totally.
is so broad strokes, man. He is so broad stroke.
Yes.
I often wonder, like, I don't know. I just often wonder, like, what Mel Gibson would think if, like, he heard us talking about every single movie he made, and we choose to watch all these movies and then we mock them a lot. But I'm not really mocking. Like, I really have come to appreciate Mel Gibson as an artist
Uh-huh.
in a way that I didn't before. I think when we first started doing this, I was sort of like, okay, this is going to be a fun thing that we do, and kind of harrowing, and we'll see how it goes to watch all of them.
Right.
There is so much I appreciate him about him as an actor.
Agreed.
I don't think he is anywhere near as good a director as he is an actor. But that's actually not because he's not a good. Actually, I don't even want to say that. Let me start again.
Okay.
I do think his direction is really, really competent. I think the way he chooses to tell stories and the things the decisions he makes, not like in story wise. Like, so for instance, Man Without a Face. He cleans up, gussies up this story and gets rid of all sorts of things that would make it complex. And really like chooses to, although he's not the screenwriter, so that's why I said, but he makes the decision as the producer to tell the simplest version of a complex story.
Yeah.
And I feel like he does that in this movie as well. And quite honestly, I feel like he does that in Passion of the Christ.
Sure. Okay.
And I think that when we get to it, Apocalypto is, for me, far and away the best movie he's directed. Far and away.
Now, I haven't seen it, but as you've said, it also, of the 4 movies he's directed, 4, right?
Yeah.
It's also the simplest in terms of plot structure. Right?
It is. To me, we talked about it the other day in our if I just say so myself, stellar Roger Ebert podcast.
Indeed.
Where which I don't think we got any comments on. I sure would love to know what people thought about the Roger Ebert podcast, but that's the story.
Nice.
Our director didn't even respond, so there, I guess. Keith, where are you? Are you paying attention to us at all? I feel a little hurt.
Help!
Direct us. So, anyways, we clearly severely lacking in direction. So, no, but Ebert did this thing where he said, I give movie ratings based on the movie accomplishing what it set out to accomplish. To me, this, like, Apocalypto is crystallized. Like, it is, he sets out to create a thrilling chase sequence film in another culture and show brutality at its most exotic and brutal. Done. Just done. Like, done. Sure. But and read Joe Morgenstern's review of that movie after you've seen it, because I think you will be really, or even before. I don't think there's any spoilers. But anyways, yeah, man, I think this movie is really, like, it's just too pretty. I think he's getting better. He shows what he's capable of on the terms of, like I said, scope, choreographing action sequences, choreographing war battle sequences. But I think you see, like, his penchant for gore is really showing, and shows more in the next 2 movies after this. There's broad strokes when it comes to sexual stuff. Just look, let's make this guy the most effeminately gay person, and then make him just.
Oh man!
I mean, the gay son, the gay prince, reminds me of Terry Jones in Monty Python and the Holy Grail in the swamp castle.
I'd
rather just sing. Except that's actually like playing a joke and being a parody, whereas this is playing it serious.
Yes.
And I read a review, or I read an interview with him where he's like, look, I'm not actually, like, he's not a villain because he's gay. Like, that's not the point. Like, he was gay, apparently, and there's rumors of this, but he's just ineffectual, and his lover is a total disaster, and that's just the reality. They're not bad because they're gay. And I'm like, I believe that you're saying that consciously, but you've portrayed them as just like, like, he's getting married and frowning while he's married, and then turns around and looks at his lover during the wedding ceremony.
Totally.
It's like,
totally.
And really?
And by the way, the way the two of them look at each other, if looks could kill and do other things, I would be pregnant.
Right.
Just because I watched them look at each other.
If looks could hump.
If looks could hump. Indeed.
Here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to say about that. If they were really together, they would not look at each other like that. Because, like, you don't look at someone like that once you've actually consummated a relationship. Once you've actually been in a relationship with someone, you just be like, we're together, so it's cool. Like
Nice.
clearly they weren't just like forbidden lovers, although they were forbidden lovers. They were together all the time, so they
Yeah.
would be totally sick of each other by now. I mean, come on, stop.
Nice. Nice.
It
Well
just
played.
wasn't. No one's human in this movie, and I think
Yeah.
that was something that really bothered me. They have
Yeah.
human characteristics. It's totally entertaining. It is totally watchable. But the reason why I don't ever need to see it again isn't because it was boring. It isn't because it's bad at all, actually. It's because you really only need to see it once to get it. And
That's very well said.
other than that, the only thing you need to watch again would just be if you're really interested in battle sequences, watching the battles. They're well done battle sequences, medieval battle sequences.
Yeah.
Then that's it. And one Irishman who takes the movie for me.
Totally. He is so good.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Mel Gibson plays William Wallace as basically, I mean, functionally like a fighting Christ figure because he never does anything wrong ever.
Yeah.
Not one
Which
thing.
which by the way, but just for the record, by virtue of the fact that he's fighting, would not make him a Christ figure.
You know what I mean.
No. I say that not to correct you, but to correct Mel Gibson.
That's
Because
fair.
Mel Gibson creates this character who is clearly very devoutly religious, who also just bashes people's heads in for the sake of revenge.
Yes.
And does not see any sort of problem with that.
Right. And there's no
would be-
complexity.
Which would be fine for a movie to show that, because
Yes.
it does seem that William Wallace was actually had
That
some
way.
issues with that.
Yes.
In real life, except that Gibson doesn't make it look like there's any reason. Like, he does that, and it seems like the right thing to do.
Right.
Like, there's no sort of questioning of, maybe we're going a little too far?
Yeah.
Like, The Patriot, which Mel Gibson didn't direct, and which is a similarly broad-stroked film that we will get to. At least there's a point where his son is like, you guys are sick and shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Yes.
Whereas in this movie, it's just sort of like, well, whatever.
Indeed.
Okay, what else do we need to think about this?
The cast, because well, first off, the a bunch of good actors, and most of them turn in good but broad performances.
Well, that's all they're given.
Two
Brennan
exceptions,
Brennan Gleeson,
they're not extraordinary exceptions,
right?
but mostly because they're not large roles. But Brian Cox as maybe the best uncle ever.
Yep.
I mean,
Although he's in it for like a minute and a half.
True.
Also in Rob Roy.
That's right. That's right. Brian Cox, all I will say is this: he makes the most of his minute and a half. Because you see the boy William Wallace, who is a ragamuffin, just sort of a rough and tumble kid, and when he comes back as the adult, as Mel Gibson, he is learned. I mean, yes, he is a vicious fighter, and he is a military tactician and all of this stuff, and he's a leader that people rally around, but he is also, to whatever extent one is possible to be in the Scottish Highlands of the 13th century, the late 13th century, he is cultured. And it comes from Brian Cox, and when Brian Cox's character, his uncle, takes him in, and he is the one who raises him, and you don't see it, but Brian Cox's character's influence is felt, I think, throughout the rest of the movie.
That's a very interesting point. I hadn't thought about that, but now that you say it, I get it. And you made me I want to gush a little bit here about Brian Cox and say something really, really like fancy-pantsy. Okay,
Please do.
There are certain actors, that acting is like, okay, here's what I want to say. I've heard people say that acting is lying for a living, and I think the exact opposite. I think that acting is telling the truth, and you may play a different character, but you're finding truth at all times. And there
Yes.
are actors who don't ever, they can do all sorts of different things. They can do funny walks or voices or whatever, but they could literally just be them on screen, or them in the sense of no fake accent, no whatever. But their presence is, you feel their presence, and you believe them, you believe them. You believe them inherently.
Yes.
Brian Cox is such an actor. Brian
Agreed.
Cox is an actor who, and if you look at his filmography, he'll take any role. I mean, he's in Super Troopers, which is a fun movie,
Sure.
but he's clearly showing he doesn't need to be artsy fartsy. And by the way, he's phenomenal in Super Troopers.
Sure.
He's in Rushmore. He's in.
I love him. It is impossible for me to express how much I love him in Rushmore.
Yeah. No. Yes.
I,
And that's special for you because that's the school you went to, right? Isn't
yes,
that your school?
indeed.
Which is
Indeed.
cool. He plays Hannibal Lecter in the first incarnation of Hannibal Lecter in Red Dragon.
Yeah. Man.
And he's one of these characters that you don't go see a Brian Cox movie. He's
Right.
generally a supporting character. But what Andy's talking about is he's given this little, and maybe it's better that he's only got a small role because then they can't like try to quote unquote flesh it out.
Right.
But
Yes.
he's in it for a couple minutes, and because they chose Brian Cox, it's memorable. Not just because we know who he is, but because you just believe him. There are
Yes.
character actors who, when they show what character actors are supposed to do in old time movies is when they show up, they don't have to say a lot. You just believe them, and
Yes.
you believe they have character.
Yes. Yes.
Being a character actor doesn't mean being able to play different characters. To me, it means your character is always on display. And Brian Cox is essential. He is a elemental. I can't say enough of it.
Yes.
So good call on that, Andy.
Thank you. And that actually leads me, because I think much or all of what you just said could be said about the other guy that I'm about to bring up, and that is Brendan Gleeson as his friend Hamish. Interestingly, I forgot that Brendan Gleeson was in this movie. I remembered Hamish as a character, but I just totally forgot that Brendan Gleeson played him. And Brendan Gleeson is just in everything. He was the dad of the little girl in 28 Days Later. He was in oh god, name something else he's been in. He's been in a ton of stuff. And he plays.
He was in Gangs of New York, by the way.
Yes, thank you. That's yes.
And the Guard, and
right.
in Bruges.
That's the one I
was
in Bruges.
And he's in Harry Potter.
He's Mad-Eye Moody in the Harry Potter
Mad-Eye
movies.
Moody in Harry Potter.
He is so in Bruges, spelled Bruges.
Right.
It is such a good movie, and no one has seen it, and he is so good in it.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Hamish, William Wallace's best friend, could have been just a one-note character because he's big and brutish and whatever, and yet Brendan Gleeson and the gentleman who plays Hamish's dad have the one honest relationship in the entire movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
just
right.
The one honest relationship.
I think that's right. And he plays a character. He basically plays Little John to William
Yes.
Wallace's Robin Hood.
Yes.
I mean, it is. In fact, now that I've said it out loud, I'm like, how did I not notice that before?
And that's yes.
But
Yes.
he's the kind of guy that gives it dignity.
Yeah.
And the dude that plays the Irishman, Stephen.
His name is David O'Hara.
Well,
and
he is phenomenal.
He is so good. He was in Hotel Rwanda. He was in The Departed.
Yes.
He was in Wanted.
Yes.
He's sort of the main bad guy. He's like the political bad guy in this movie called Doomsday, which is not a good movie, but he's good in it, and it's a lot of fun to watch. It's like post-apocalyptic people decapitating each other in England.
What could go wrong?
He is. He also is in the Harry Potter movies. He plays, I believe his character's name is Runcorn. You wouldn't know that, but here's why you would know him. in the first part of the seventh book movie, Deathly Hallows Part 1, when the three kids take the potion to make themselves look like someone else, and they go into the Ministry of Magic, Runcorn is one of the people that they turn into.
Right. So you wouldn't know that. I mean, like normal, if you're just you don't know who we're talking about by saying that. But
no, I don't. I see him. I see it on his Wikipedia filmography, and then I went over to. Yeah, no, I wouldn't know that if not for that. But he is. I mean, in his own way, it's a fairly broad performance, but it's one that he can have fun and it works.
It's a great. He gives it a lot of fun. He makes it a very memorable character.
Indeed.
A very memorable character. He just plays he just goes for broke.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, and it's not overused. But
that's true too.
Yeah. So I love, and everybody else is just sort of characters, not character actors, like just sort of like
Patrick McGoohan plays the king, who is so just purely evil. I mean, he's good at it.
Yeah.
But he, as an actor, he's
great. Listen, it's a very well made movie about. Yes. It's just broad strokes all the way through. It's just they're not people. Like there's no people. Here's okay, Mel Gibson goes on this rampage ostensibly for the freedom of his country, but really just because someone killed his wife.
Yes.
Then, in the midst of all this, he ends up having an affair with, ready for it, the Princess of England?
Yes.
Princess of Wales? That's not gonna happen, but okay.
Right.
Just straight up sleeps with her.
Yep.
And then sees her right before he's executed. Spoiler, I don't care. Executed. And it's like saying the Titanic went down, really.
Indeed. Everyone's seen Braveheart, you're fine.
And sleeps with her right before then, like literally, and sleeps with her, and then right before he's executed, he sees her that day, and they like kiss goodbye. And then right before he dies, what does he see?
His wife.
His wife walking through the crowd, and it's like his last dying vision is his wife. Really? Because if you really care about her, you totally just slept with someone else.
It's true.
I can still smell the princess's perfume on you, buddy. Maybe take a shower before you get to the gates to see your wife. It was problematic at best.
Indeed. Totally true.
He literally sleeps with the princess just to prove, it's literally like peeing on someone's leg. It's like, just to show from a directorial standpoint, the prince can't even sleep with you. Because he's gay, and gay people are evil in this movie.
Right.
But Braveheart can sleep with you and still be faithful with his wife somehow. I don't know.
Totally.
I know I sound like I hate this movie. I promise I don't. If you've never seen Braveheart, you will enjoy it thoroughly. It is ridiculous nonsense. Okay, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this?
Tell me.
William Wallace never wore a kilt.
Awesome.
No one in that generation, in that time, Scots, wore plaid kilts, wore plaids. They didn't do that for another couple centuries.
Awesome.
And when they wore them, they didn't wear them the way they were worn in this film. Do you know why Randall Wallace, who wrote it, no relation to William Wallace? Oh, maybe he does relation, but it doesn't matter because it's hundreds of years later. Do you know why Randall Wallace, the screenwriter, and Mel Gibson, the director, chose to do this?
Why?
Because it would look the way we think Scottish people look.
Sure.
That's all. That's three. They make this huge deal about William Wallace coming from the commoners and not being a noble. William Wallace was a noble, a Scottish noble.
Yep.
And rich landowner.
There's the joke in like, you're not William Wallace. William Wallace is taller because Mel Gibson is like 5'9".
Right.
And he's like, William Wallace is 7 feet tall. You know how tall he was? He was 6'5", which in that day and age was basically 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he was ginormous.
Right? I mean, I get it. You gotta.
I also have a problem with the fact that, like, the big joke made about this movie when it came out, I think, is a completely legitimate joke, which is that everyone in Scotland is dirty and gross except for Mel Gibson, whose teeth are perfect, and his wife, whose teeth are perfect, and they look like they just came from California.
Yes.
Mel Gibson looks like a person with normal hair who had hair extensions to look like they had long hair.
Yes.
If you're going to spend all sorts of money on all this other stuff, maybe just grow your freaking hair out or get a better person to do your hair extensions.
It's not like you just found out the day before you started shooting. Just don't get a haircut for a while.
It would be so interesting. I mean, like, watch Rob Roy and see how grimy and gross Liam Neeson looks.
Yes. Yes.
It would be amazing to think of what kind of movie about William Wallace could be made with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes.
And I don't just say that because Daniel Day-Lewis is the go-to great actor of our generation now. Although there's a really good article by Joe Queenan in The Guardian about... Joe Queenan's one of my favorite writs. I mean, he writes about... It basically is... You could just look up... Google Joe Queenan, which is It's like Queen, A-N. Queenan. But just type in Joe Queenan and Daniel Day-Lewis. And he says, now that Daniel Day-Lewis has won 3 Best Actors, is he officially the best actor? Because he's the only person who's won those. And he kind of talks about that. But one thing he talks about is, like, Daniel Day-Lewis's, like, ridiculous attention to detail. It would be really interesting to see how Daniel Day-Lewis would handle making a movie like a medieval Scotsman.
Yeah, I agree. What else you got? Because I got a couple things.
Please. Because everything I'm saying is, like, negative, and if you have other things, bring them up.
Sure. 2 quotes from this movie that I say all the time. Right? One I don't say as much as I used to, but... I'm going to pick a fight. Like before the first battle, and it's like, let's go, we'll talk to them, we'll negotiate, and it's like, where are you going? I'm going to pick a fight.
Oh, it's so good.
So good. And this is telling, this is said at first from Brian Cox to the young William Wallace, and then from William Wallace to his bride-to-be about various things that they don't know yet that they're going to teach them. He says, he's like, you don't know Latin? He's like, no, I don't know Latin. He says, well, that is something we shall have to remedy, isn't it? And I just all the time I say, that is something we shall have to remedy.
Did you have a Scottish girlfriend in high school?
First kiss.
Did I just give too much information about you over the internet?
It's good. Ladies and gentlemen, my first kiss was in Scotland. And
I knew it was something awesome about you.
Yes. First kiss in Scotland with a Scottish girl. I didn't fly my high school girlfriend over to Scotland just to kiss her.
Although
that brings me to the coolest story I have about this movie, and everything we've just said about the historical inaccuracies, blah blah blah. And yet, okay, I went to between my junior and senior years of high school, I went to the UK, but most of my time was spent in Scotland with my choir. And we were homestayed for that first week in Aberdeen, Scotland, with Scottish students at the academy that was sort of our sister academy. Something that was happening during that week that was there, for the first time in years and years and years and years, the national football teams, national soccer teams of Scotland and England were playing in Wembley Stadium, the big, the most famous, most hallowed grounds of soccer in England.
Right.
And for 2 to 3 days, maybe as long as a week, before the game, no Scottish video rental store was allowed to rent Braveheart, because they thought that if people watched Braveheart and then Scotland beat England, that there would be riots.
Wow.
How amazing is that?
That's pretty amazing. Amazing.
Scotland lost 2-0, and there were riots anyway. But the Crown did what it did.
There was bound to be. But yes, no, yeah. I mean, there's definitely and one of the things about this movie was this idea that wow, this is really anti-England, this movie.
Yes.
Although, I mean, England, when it comes to the way they treat Scotland and Ireland, It's
and
worth discussing.
places under their control that isn't England. Let's be
Yeah,
honest. You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite movies is Last of the Mohicans, and they don't like England a lot in that movie.
No, no, no. Absolutely not. The places who are conquered by imperialist countries don't really like the imperialists. As a general
What?
rule. As a general
Yeah.
rule. Are we done? Are we done?
No, no. You
No?
ready for this
Oh, okay,
quote?
go.
You ready for this quote?
Hmm?
Sharon Crossa.
Okay.
Sharon Crossa she got her PhD in medieval studies with a focus on Scottish medieval history.
Sweet.
So, just to give you some credentials before I read her quote.
Okay.
In that period, no Scots wore belted plaids, let alone kilts of any kind. Moreover, when Highlanders finally did begin wearing that belted plaid, it was not in the rather bizarre style depicted in the film. And this is from the Wikipedia thing. I haven't read her whole article, but it says she compares the inaccuracy to a film about colonial America, showing the colonial men wearing 20th century business suits, but with the jackets worn back to front instead of the right way round. The events. So imagine that. Imagine a movie set in revolutionary times, but everyone's wearing Armani suits and wearing them backwards.
Wow. Okay.
The events aren't accurate. The dates aren't accurate. The characters aren't accurate. The names aren't accurate. The clothes aren't accurate. In short, just about nothing is accurate. The belted plaid was not introduced until the 16th century, which is 300 years later. So anyways,
Awesome.
I thought that was pretty fantastic. I also, when it comes to there's this whole thing of prima nocta, the idea of the English nobleman sleeping with yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
The simple reason why we are dealing with a myth here rests in the surprising fact that practically all writers who make any such claims have never been able to or willing to cite any trustworthy source if they have any.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I found that pretty fascinating. I mean, it just isn't in any way accurate. It goes even further. You're gonna like this. You know the term Braveheart?
Hmm.
Yeah, that wasn't for William Wallace in real life. Braveheart was the name given to Robert the Bruce.
Fascinating. Okay. Okay.
But think about that. They
Yeah.
even took the name Braveheart and they gave it to a different character when it actually belonged to Robert the Bruce, who is not portrayed positively in this film. Sympathetically, but not positively.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that statement entirely.
You and I have talked in the past about how frustrated I get when biographical films or movies based on true events. I get really frustrated by their inaccuracies, and you less so. We did a whole episode on The Social Network about that, and I get really angry and frustrated about this stuff, and Andy doesn't. That being said, like, this is an example where I read through this and I'm just like, it's literally just you being like, yeah, but this is a better story to tell. And by you, I mean Mel Gibson.
Yes.
His performance is fine. He does a great job. We didn't talk about MG as an actor. You know, he's great in this. He's believable. I mean, great in the Mel Gibson way.
Yes.
He's utterly Mel Gibson in this movie.
Yep.
He
Good
knows
accent.
he does a wonderful job with his accent.
Yep.
He is by turns charming, intelligent, scary, rugged. Like, he is such a...
Unhinged. He has a couple of moments where he is truly mad, and it works.
He's very good at that in real life and in film. Yeah, I mean, totally. I'm all set with Braveheart.
Okay. Let's talk about what's coming up.
Yes.
Next 3 weeks. Pocahontas.
I'm sorry. Say that again?
Pocahontas.
Okay.
I have no idea why I'm saying it that way.
Nope.
I don't know. I'm imagining some, like, pompous tour guide taking us through the halls of the Gibsonian.
Here we go.
Over here, we've got Pocahontas.
The halls of the Gibsonian Institute.
Yes.
By the way, Andy and I, neither of us have ever seen Pocahontas.
Very excited. Very excited.
Yeah.
because I do generally and genuinely like Disney movies. So I
Yeah.
need to. So it's a whole.
Yeah.
Week after Pocahontas, Ransom.
Yes.
Week after Ransom, Conspiracy Theory.
I
So
have I actually been reading about conspiracy theory, and apparently it was like, though it did terribly in the box office, like reviewers both, I think Ebert liked it, Joe Morgenstern liked it, like reviewers were like, this is not a bad movie
yeah,
actually. They got really
my
bad
dad really
credit.
liked it. I saw it. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on video, but I really liked it. But I haven't watched it since. I've only seen it the once, so I'm
Looking
excited
forward
to
to it. Looking forward to
revisit.
it.
So that's 3 weeks from now. So next 3 weeks again, Pocahontas, Ransom, Conspiracy Theory, and that is what the Gibsonian Institute has set up for our next 3 weeks of Project Melway.
Game on.
Game on. Until then, we are Second Breakfast. I'm Andy Roth. Oh, yes.
See Rob Roy.
Oh,
Please.
see Rob Roy.
Just please. Just I know like we have friends that are like, oh, whatever, you're just being contrarian by picking the less popular Scott. No, it's so good. It's so good, Rob
Yeah.
Roy.
Yeah.
And
Cause,
it's on Netflix instant streaming, and I believe it's on Amazon instant streaming as
yeah.
well.
Because Phil and I don't like any movies that are popular.
No.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
We're totally
Rob Roy
contrarian.
is so good. Okay, go ahead.
It is really good. That's it. We're done. We're Second Breakfast. I'm Andy Roth. That's Phil Duvall. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.